All right, guys. So anybody with any basic knowledge of economics, okay, can predict that, inflation is a concern if you've been paying attention to what's going on, okay? Loose monetary policy and endless fiscal stimulus that is coming from the Democrats, has put this economy in danger of seeing inflation, right? Inflation that's higher than historical average for the past 2 decades. Okay. Now, lo and behold, this is something I've been talking about probably at least for the last 3 or 4 months. New inflation report comes out and says that in April, consumer prices rose 4.2%, the fastest since 2008. So just so you guys understand how this works, what they're saying is that from last April to this April, right, inflation has rose 4.2%. Now, the goal is for it to be on average 2% a year. So as you can see here, we're experiencing some inflation, like I've been telling you guys. But apparently there are people on the left, particularly Kyle Kulinski from Secular Talk, who don't believe in inflation, right? Apparently, okay? Whom are very ignorant on economics and thinks that you can just spend endlessly, okay? That the government is an endless piggy bank. And I usually don't do videos like this, guys, but I'm doing it because I caught this segment from Secular Talk, right, which is a progressive left-wing channel, okay? And what Kyle was talking about was just so ignorant that I just couldn't help but make a response video. Because he's going to try to come out to Tucker Carlson, who, like me, has been warning about, inflation. And guys, I'm not just warning about inflation because of what Biden's doing. I also said that the Republicans need to get their ish together and stop spending as much as they do when they get in office as well. Okay? Because they spend just like the Democrats do. Okay? So this is not even politically motivated for me. I'm just giving my opinion, right, in regards to how our spending is out of control. So Tucker Carlson does a segment, right, and Kyle Kulinski is going to respond to Tucker Carlson's segment in regards to Tucker warning about inflation. Now, I'm going to play this clip towards the end of Tucker's segment, in which, just so you guys have more context in terms of the argument that Tucker was making, and then Kyle is going to give his opinion, and then I'm going to start to chime in.
When you print too much fake money, the value of that money declines. People start to figure out that it's not real, and you get inflation. That's always true. No one disputes it. The White House just doesn't care. Here's the new Treasury Secretary telling you not to worry about inflation because it's not a concern.
And I think the economy is going to get back on track. I don't anticipate that inflation is going to be a problem, but it is something that we're watching very carefully. I don't think there's going to be an inflationary problem. President Biden has also proposed further substantial spending packages we would love to see enacted into law.
Oh, so just keep spending trillions of made-up dollars to pay off your political constituencies because there won't be an inflationary problem. Right. Thanks, genius. How'd you get that job anyway? So what is going on here? Probably a lot of things. It's a huge country and a pretty complicated country. But here's one reason behind what we're seeing. The government is paying people to stay home.
This is standard right-wing economic bullshit that could have been delivered by Ben Shapiro. It could have been delivered by George W. Bush. This is trickle-down Reaganomics garbage. Garbage is what this is. The government is paying people not to work. So which thing are you against? Unemployment insurance? The stimulus checks? Which thing are you against?
Now, I can't speak for Tucker on this, but to respond to Kyle, I would say that at the very least, we should reconsider how much we're paying people in unemployment. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean get rid of all of it, but when you're paying people more to be unemployed than they are to be employed, people are going to make the rational decision to not want to look for work. Okay? And we've seen in terms of recovery in jobs, high wage jobs and medium wage jobs, basically jobs that pay more than the government's paying right now to be unemployed, have recovered. Those jobs have recovered. Companies are not having problems hiring those workers. The companies that are having trouble hiring workers are the jobs that pay lower wages, okay? Service jobs, restaurant jobs, things like that, okay? Jobs that pay a lower wage are having trouble recovering workers, okay? So, again, I can't speak for Tucker Carlson, but I can say that, well, if you, again, look at it, yeah, you might want to cut unemployment because we've have over, 7 million job openings. Only 266,000 people actually took a job last month. But we have 7 million openings. Something's wrong. Okay? So, yeah, I can answer that question. Yeah, we probably should cut unemployment benefits to motivate people to get back to work because that's going to cause an issue.
I'm very curious, Tucker. Please be specific. Which things would you say scale back on that? So, in other words, instead of saying, hey, yeah, people are getting some money because we have a pandemic and so many people lost their job and so many people are screwed, instead of looking at people who are struggling and say, yes, help them out, cut them a check, and oh my God, people aren't going back to work. Hey, businesses, you should raise wages to incentivize these people to go back to work. What does he do? He's insinuating or implying like we shouldn't have done either the unemployment insurance or the stimulus checks. That is a bullshit right-wing economics position. So I want to go through more of what he said here. He talked about, the jobs report, it's really not that great. There were only like 220,000 jobs that were created. And the estimate was like 900,000 to 1 million. Now, that is true. But what they don't tell you is it's very likely that without this recent massive stimulus, we may have like lost 1 million or 2 million jobs.
Now, this is also a dubious claim, right? He's coming out the Tucker Carlson for making dubious claims, but yet he's making dubious claims. Because again, guys, I've been telling you for a long time, right? Even before the stimulus passed, I was like, the big banks, right? The financial services industry is predicting that our economy, our GDP, is going to grow at record levels. We're talking about 6 to 7%. So there was a strong argument to be made in which the Republicans were right on this, that we don't need a stimulus. We don't need a stimulus. The economy is recovering. We caused the economy to fail. And then we spent money keeping businesses afloat. Some businesses, a lot of small businesses got wiped out, but we spent money trying to keep people afloat and keep the economy afloat for, again, a shutdown that we caused. Again, this was not something that happened because of natural economic forces. This is something that we created, okay? Now, we're opening back up, right? We've opened the economy back up, and we've given all these people money, right? Stimulus checks that people weren't spending. Again, I went over that as well, too. People weren't spending, particularly high-income earners weren't spending their stimulus checks. Now that the economy's open back up, people want to spend that money. Now that people are spending that money and the economy's opening back up, jobs are being created, which means that all the stimulus that we gave out last year, that's a good argument that we did probably need that, okay? Now that money is finally starting to be spent. People are dipping into their savings and deciding to go out again and spend money. So therefore, there is a good argument to be made that we didn't really need that last stimulus package. Or at the very least, it should have been a lot more targeted, okay? So I don't really see where he's getting this information from in terms of, if we didn't have this new stimulus, we would have lost more jobs. I'm not sure if that's entirely true, because a lot of the growth that we're seeing right now comes from the fact that people are dipping into their savings as the economies open up. They're spending those stimulus checks. They're spending money that they saved from not basically spending money for a whole year. It's really not that hard.
That definitely could have happened. And so with the stimulus, we only gained 220,000. Gaining 220,000 is a lot better than losing millions.
But see, the point he's missing here is that we were estimating to gain over 1 million, right? That's what we were estimating. The estimation was that people were going to go back to work. But that's not what's happening. People are not going back to work. There's 7+ million job openings. That means everybody's hiring. Guys, I get a text message every single day from a recruiter asking me to basically take some manager position at a financial services company, right? Every single day. Okay? Even though I got a new job now, at least for right now, unless YouTube kick me off the platforms. But I get messages every single day about getting a new job. Okay? What he has to understand is that it was expected that more people would take jobs, right? That more people would get back into the workforce, but that's not happening. That's what he's missing. That the economy should be better than what it is, that the jobs report should be better than what it is.
But he doesn't even give you that option. He doesn't even say, like, well, this might be what's happening. He does the typical right wing, like, oh, well, this is bad because Biden's economic approach is bad. To the extent Biden's economic approach is bad is that he's not left enough. Not that he's too far left.
Again, this is also how the progressives think. Oh, it's bad because he's not left enough. So how much should we spend? Should Biden have spent $10 trillion? Like Kyle wants them to spend on infrastructure, right? This dude goes on his channel and he says they should be spending $10 trillion on infrastructure. It's not nearly enough. $4 trillion is not enough. They should spend more on stimulus. They should have a UBI. They should have Medicare for all. They should have a guaranteed jobs program. They should have free college. They should eliminate student loan debt. These guys don't believe that the government can spend too much money, right? And this is how they get as big as they do, right? This guy has almost 1 million subscribers. And when you go up there and you tell people, yeah, the government can just spend an unlimited amount of money, you're getting robbed because the government's not doing more for you, right? Again, as if the government has an unlimited amount of money to spend. This dude said what they did was not enough. Not enough. Even though, again, people are getting paid more to sit at home, right? I mean, you got people getting paid, $800-900 a week, more than they've ever earned in their life, just sitting at home being unemployed. And he's trying to say the government is not doing enough. It's crazy.
He says unemployment is rising, but also people don't want to work. Again, I would take issue with, I'm not sure that's accurate, but assuming it is accurate, It is accurate,
bruh. You literally just read the jobs report. You literally just said out of your own mouth, well, we only added 200 and some thousand. It was predicted to be 1 million. So you know that. Like, come on, man.
Just tell businesses to raise wages. Incentivize them to get back to work. I thought
here we go. Oh, in order to fix it, just tell small businesses to raise wages. Again, this is why I try to say, guys, these people are economically illiterate. They're economically illiterate. They believe that small businesses, again, have this magic piggy bank where they can just raise wages. Just raise wages. Just pay people more. Compete with the government. Even though those jobs, again, like I told you guys, these low-wage jobs, we're talking about fast food jobs, service jobs. We're talking about jobs that just don't pay that much. They operate on low margins. They're not designed to pay people for $15-20 an hour. They're not. They operate based off volume and low margins. So when you go out here and you just say, well, businesses just pay more, it shows that you don't know anything about business. You don't know anything about the economy, right? And you're just speaking from a progressive dream world in which you think that the government and businesses have an unlimited piggy bank and they can just spend whatever they want. And because people are not getting paid what you think they should be getting paid, therefore these business owners are just greedy and that they're evil. This is how progressives think.
Incentives were what people cared about, right? This is what you hear from right wingers. Oh, you got to incentivize it. A good way to incentivize it is to pay them more to work. Not, hey, take away the bare minimum help that we've given people. Make people suffer more. Take away the unemployment insurance or take away the stimulus checks. But again, this is what he's implying here. And then, the full right-wing positions are, he says, when you print too much fake money, inflation is coming, and that's going to be a problem. Guys, this is Austrian economics nonsense. That's what this is. So in other words, he's not taking the modern monetary theory position or the Keynesian position. That would be the populist position. One of those two, that would be the populist position. He's taking the Austrian economics position. As a matter of principle, the government, can't increase capital flow into the society and into the private market You can't print fake money, as he says. You can't do stimulus in an economic downturn because that by definition is bad because it by definition will lead to inflation.
I think this is a straw man. I don't think Tucker is saying that you can't do that at all. I think what he's saying is that when you do too much of it, then it becomes a problem. But again, he's not going to recognize that because progressives don't believe that there can be too much of anything.
That's just fundamentally not true. And the evidence for that is what happened during the Great Depression. What happened during the Great Depression? So FDR comes in, does the New Deal, does these massive spending programs during a giant economic downturn, during a depression, a literal Great Depression, and it didn't lead to inflation. It helped the economy get back on its feet, and it helped the American people.
Okay, so this right here, he's not being truthful about this. So he's trying to call out Tucker Carlson for saying that something's not empirically true, and then he goes and he says something that is empirically not true. The New Deal under FDR that these progressives love to tout did not pull the U.S. out of the Great Depression, okay? Matter of fact, GDP during the lowest point, right, in 1933, right, the lowest point of contraction after the stock market crash in 1929, GDP per capita was 47% below what it was before the stock market crash of 1929, okay? And then by 1939, it was still 17% below what it was before the market crashed, okay? What really pulled us out of the Great Depression was the war. It was World War II, okay? That's what pulled us out of the Great Depression, okay? We put a whole lot of people to work, okay? Now, again, this was massive government spending, but it was one of those things in which he's trying to say that, well, it was the New Deal, right? And that's not what it was. It was actually the war, okay? It was the war and the production and the goods and services that we produce in order to fund the war and to support the war, okay? That's what helped pull us out of the Great Depression. It wasn't the New Deal. The New Deal was a failure for that, right? Now, what the New Deal did do, it established some permanent social programs like Social Security and stuff like that. But in terms of taking us out of the Great Depression, it did not do that, okay? Now, he's also right about inflation. Inflation did not rise during that time period. But as we got into the 40s, in which, you know, we basically became a command economy because of the war effort, we did see inflation rise, right? About 5.5% over 10 years. Okay. But we didn't really see genuine economic recovery until the 50s, where we went back to a more free market approach. Not completely free market, but more free market than it was before. Right. A lot of people had saved money, right, during that time, during the war period. And at the beginning, a lot of investment went down. But as the war was ending, investments went up. People started spending more, expectations started to rise, and we really went into a period of economic prosperity in which we saw very low inflation going into the 50s, in which on average was about 2%, lasting all the way up into the 70s. But again, it was actually a depression back then. We're not in a depression right now, okay? We're not. We're in a strong economy, and Biden is potentially overheating the economy. There's a huge difference. The progressives are trying to frame our current moment where we're at right now as some type of depression. And we're not in a depression. And the depression that we were in, the recession, whatever you want to call it, we caused that, right? That wasn't something done by natural market forces. That was something that was caused by a government force shutdown. There's a huge difference. And we've already spent our way out of it. Now we're seeing the positive effects of that. At some point, you got to be like, all right, let's slow down. Let's see what happens and goes from there. Let's make sure we're not overheating this thing. But that's not what Biden's doing. And these progressives actually think Biden should be doing more. They think that they should just keep pouring fuel on the fire because, don't worry, inflation doesn't exist. It's not a thing. It's not a thing. Even though, again, they historically just been wrong. But they try to act like they know about economics when they don't understand anything even about the basics of economic history.
But these are the same arguments people were making back then in the Great Depression. Right-wingers would say, oh no, You can't do this stimulus. You can't do this New Deal. You can't have the government spend all this money because where are you going to get the money from? I guess you just have to print it. And if you print it, it's going to devalue the currency. So the part that they don't tell you is this. Typically, for inflation to happen, you also need colossal political instability. So it's not just like, oh, the government increases the money supply. That's not it. It's also, you have to have massive political instability accompanying that as well.
Now, this right here is the worst claim. This is the worst claim, okay? This is just objectively not true. Guys, were we politically unstable in the 70s? Like, how much political instability are you talking about? I'm assuming he's trying to refer to Venezuela. Okay? I think that's what he's trying to say. But during the 70s, average inflation was like 7%. 7-8%. Okay? Were we a politically unstable country? No. That inflation was caused by, again, loose monetary policy and overspending by the government. That's what it was caused by. Okay? Driving up wages artificially. Right? That's what it was caused by. But yet this dude right here pretends that the U.S. government, whom, again, we've never really been that politically unstable. We've been very politically stable, has never seen inflation before. We've never seen it. Never been a thing. Now, in the past few decades, we've kept it under control, right? We've kept it right around 2-3%-ish, right? For the last couple decades. Ever since after Reagan, we've done a great job of keeping inflation under control. But what's happening is that Biden is a threat to that because of our loose monetary policy, keeping interest rates super low, right? Cheap money, combined with more spending from the government. Okay? That's what's happening. But again, this guy, he doesn't recognize that because, again, he believes that the government has an unlimited piggy bank. And he hasn't even read about the basics of economic history and inflation in our country. Otherwise, you would make stupid statements like that, saying that you need political instability to have inflation. That's not true at all. Again, were we politically unstable in the 70s? I don't think so, right? It depends on what you define as that, but I don't think we were.
And by the way, if inflation does start to happen, then there are ways to ameliorate it that economists have.
Yeah, like increase interest rates and taxes, right? Yeah, things that are going to hurt us, okay? Things that are going to hurt. Increase in taxes and increase in interest rates. And I don't really have a problem with increasing interest rates, okay? Because, you know, I do think that, like I said, you got to get inflation under control. It's going to be a hit. I'm losing money in the stock market. A lot of people are losing money, right? Because companies are, valuations are going down because the expectation of increase in inflation and interest rates to try to bring it under control. But again, it's going to be more taxes. And ultimately, at the end of the day, these higher wages that these people are asking for is not actually going to amount to anything in terms of purchasing power because the growing inflation is eroding the power of the dollar. But again, he doesn't want to make that connection. He can't make that connection because he's economically illiterate. He doesn't understand that that inflation erodes the power of the dollar. So even if you get the wage increases that you want, right? You want to force these companies to increase wages. It's not going to matter if their purchasing power goes down. It might appear that you're making more money, right? Just from a sheer dollar amount perspective. But when it comes down to what you can actually spend that money on, how much can your dollars buy? You're going to find that you can buy a lot less. And we've seen it show up, guys, throughout the economy, whether you're talking about gas prices, commodity prices, food prices. Look at housing market. Okay. Yes, I do think that the Fed keeping interest rates low for too long is definitely has inflated the stock market and it's inflated the housing market as well. And I do think we should bring that under control. But I think that we have to do that, and this is going to be painful to do. People aren't going to like it. This is why I would never be a politician, right? Because the things that you actually need to do are not politically expedient. You probably need to decrease spending, okay, and have less of that in order to bring our debt under control and to bring inflation under control. But again, that would never win elections, right? Biden has to come in and try to act like he's FDR, as if we're in a Great Depression, and we're not. We're not in the Great Depression. The economy is projected to grow significantly. We're fine. We have so many jobs, we don't have enough workers. We need people to get back to work. Or else we're going to see more increase in inflation as employers are going to have to raise wages, right? The cost of goods are going to go up. Things are going to go up, and people's purchasing power is going to go down. The purchasing power of their savings is going to go down. Again, inflation is a tax on everybody. These progressives love to promise big things from the government, but you will be taxed on those things. And you're not going to get as great as benefits as you think. Sometimes it's okay in a situation like this specifically to do nothing. But yet they want to keep doing more and more and more, even though we're obviously in a position where we don't need to do that. So anyways, I want to respond to this because just some of the stuff that he was saying was just ridiculous. And I just had to, right? And with some of the topics, the news cycle not being as, crazy as it was before, I might have to start doing more responses to leftists. But let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.